the data tells a story that's gotta be told. It's the art and the science, getting the numbers right. Brandformance!
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Brandformance. Today's episode is a rerun of a live session we hosted with Rex Gelb, who ran paid media for Hubspot for a decade. Rex has experience running more than $700 million of advertising through all channels like Google, Meta, LinkedIn, and many others. So let's dive straight in and find out what his special sauce is when it comes to paid media. Welcome, everybody. And Rex, thank you for joining us today. This is going to be a blockbuster session. I think when I posted on LinkedIn just like 3 or 4 days ago, this was the most popular office hours session that we are doing. So you are in demand, my friend.
I hope I live up to it. I've been looking forward to it. I think it'll be fun.
All right, Rex, welcome. We do these I think once a month. We've done in the past sessions on how to think about YouTube advertising. We've done sessions on TV advertising. We did one on events. And this one is a little bit special because I think you are special. So I'm going to quickly introduce you. You ran all of paid media at HubSpot for the last decade almost. Is that right?
Yeah. I think 11 years in total.
I mean, talk about being at the eye of the storm, given just the epic journey that HubSpot has been on. So this is going to be a fun conversation. You've seen pretty much all the possible channels that we can think about. And, one of the questions that somebody asked me on LinkedIn was like, hey, is this only going to be applicable to people who are spending at HubSpot's level? And I was like, well, not really, because now you are also doing advisory work for a whole bunch of startups, and you have throughout your career to help smaller startups, Series A, Series B, even Paramark, think about how to invest in paid media. So this will be fun. Anything you want to say before we get in and introduce yourself a little bit more? Anything you want to add? How's your day going? How's your morning going?
Day's going great. Still shoveling myself shoveling my way out of my house a little bit. I'm on the East Coast. But aside from that, can't complain. That was a great recap of my background. So I spent about 10 years at HubSpot. On the side, started doing, advising work for different companies, some big ones, Ramp, Vercel, Reddit, Vimeo, some small ones that you haven't heard of, and everywhere in between. And then, now I kind of what happened is through that I got exposure to a lot of different paid media agencies. Wasn't super impressed with what I was seeing, and then kind of made the leap to, well, I could do it better, and that's where I am today.
All right, fantastic. And your agency is called Summit Chase. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Yep.
All right. So go, everybody, before I even get started here, go follow Rex on LinkedIn, go follow Summit Chase, see what he's up to next. I'm sure there's a lot of fun stuff in his future. All right, agenda. We're going to talk about everything from why our favorite clicks don't always equate to pipeline. We're going to talk about setting up the first campaigns. We're going to talk about all things AI and what's good and what's not when it comes to budgets and bidding, ad tracking, obviously, in HubSpot, and then some do's and don'ts. So I'm going to hand it off to you, Rex, and let's kick it off.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Pranav. So yeah, let's go one by one. So starting with why clicks don't always equal pipeline. So I think there's 3 general buckets of things that I see going wrong at a high level. The first one is tracking and data accuracy. So I think we're all familiar at this stage of how AI systems and models work. And it's all about if the foundational data is garbage, then the output is going to be garbage as well. And if you're still, just optimizing to clicks in your system, don't be surprised if you just end up with a lot of click happy people that are not in your ICP clicking on these ads, because that's what you're telling the AI system that you want, and they're going to take that literally. So be careful with that. And what you want to do is you want to pass back events that you actually care about. So for example, maybe you don't care about clicks, maybe you care about leads or MQLs or SQLs or opportunities. You can, on those life cycle stage changes, you can pass that information back into the ad network, both to observe it, but also to tell the system to literally optimize to that thing that you care about. There's a caveat here, because a lot of people on this call might be thinking like, yeah, like in theory it sounds great optimizing the customers, but I get like one new customer a month. Is that like enough to optimize to? And that is a very fair push. So what you want to do in those situations is come up with proxy mix to optimize to. So, ideally it's not a click. Ideally, at a minimum, it's like they visited your pricing page, or they spent 2 minutes on your website, or they hit a CTA, or maybe it is a lead. But then over time, as you're spending more and you're getting a bigger sample size, work further and further down the funnel. And, different ad platforms have different best practices. I think Meta wants 50 conversions per week per budget line. I think Google wants 15 to 30 conversions per week per budget line. So you can kind of adapt your proxy metric to make them happy. But yeah, like tracking and getting that signal back is important.
Can I ask you a question right away on that? So let's say, Paramark is a great example. So we are advertising today just on LinkedIn. We don't do search ads yet. We only do LinkedIn. And a majority of our campaigns are thought leadership campaigns, which is taking like my organic content and, promoting them. And we've started dedicating half our budget to like the company handle and interesting content from the company handle. The nature of LinkedIn advertising is, and for the thing that we do, I'm not expecting people to click through and like immediately fill a form. So I like your idea of the pricing page. I like the idea of like, hey, did that lead to a site visit of more than 30 seconds, right? And we will have enough data points for that and feed that back. But, and this is where my question gets interesting, what if they don't actually click through? What if they see the ad and like 2 days later they go and type paramark.com, and how do you then feed that data back? How do you tell LinkedIn that, hey, talk to us about that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And LinkedIn thought leadership ads are a little bit unique, because when you set them up, when you like build out the campaign, you actually have to select either engagement or awareness, because like LinkedIn doesn't want you using those for performance marketing. So you literally can't select conversions, which makes sense, because when people are promoting like the thought leadership, they're not like, hey, book a demo with me. They're like, this is something interesting about my space. And then, maybe a conversation started and that turns into a lead later. So how do you kind of like, I don't know if game it is the right word, but how do you do it in a way that like, you are seeing tangible ROI? So a couple of things. One is you can see view through conversions on thought leadership ads. You can still set up your conversion tracking, and then you can see like maybe they didn't click on your thought leadership ad, which they probably didn't, but maybe they saw it and then converted within 30 days or whatever time window you want. And then that's like not a bad, like, ooh, something did happen because of this. And then the other thing you can do, so not everyone knows this, but so there's campaign manager and then there's business manager. In business manager, you can set up what's called the revenue attribution report, RAR for short, and you connect it to your CRM. It's compatible with HubSpot, Salesforce, and Microsoft. And then that will unlock new reporting, which is very, very useful for thought leadership ads, because you can toggle between not just did they click or did they view, but did they see your ad one time? Did they see your ad 4 times? Did they see your ad 8 times? Did they engage with your ad? You'll see, ROAS numbers in there. You'll see pipeline numbers in there. You can do it at the contact level. Did that specific contact see it? Or you can do it at the company level. Did anyone in that company see my ad 8 times? So those are kind of like the workarounds. And then from there, you kind of have to optimize manually based on ideally like what's getting you pipeline.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And at our stage, and I'm curious to hear your take. So we're spending, 5K, 10K, maybe we'll ramp up to 20K, 30K a month type of thing, right? We haven't hit saturation on LinkedIn by any means. We're not even like caring as much about individual, ads and like trying to attribute perfectly. We're just kind of saying, hey, everybody tells us that they saw us on LinkedIn. And that volume of like qualitative feedback is enough for us to kind of keep investing, because we're only investing in one channel. Is that a good idea? Is that a bad idea?
I think it's fine for your scale, like, like kind of finger in the air, like this is kind of gambling a little bit, but like I feel pretty good about it. Because the thing is with the kind of measurement of like, well, I'll just notice if this is working. I think that works at like a company size like yours, where like you will just notice. At a bigger company, it starts to become a lot fuzzier, and kind of like you end up having this question of it's not like, is this contributing value? It's, is this contributing enough value for it to be worth it? And, sounds like you're spending $5,000-$10,000 a month. I think you're not breaking the bank or doing anything irresponsible. The logic's going to break if you want to like take that to $100,000 a month. Now you're going to be thinking, okay, like actually, I do kind of want to see what's going on here. And maybe $100,000, you're cool with that. Are you going to be okay with it at $1 million? At a certain point, you're going to kind of want to see some numbers. So I don't think you're doing anything crazy or irresponsible now, but at a certain point, you're going to want to figure some of the stuff out.
Absolutely. Okay, tell me what's happening on the chart on the right here. And you talked about follow-up speed. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So this is like something that maybe is like not really a paid media thing and more of like an ops thing, but I went ahead and included it because it's such a silent killer. And there's so many times like my team is driving all the right leads and it's like, we're looking at them. It's like, why is this like, this is the perfect lead. We're getting a ton of them. Why aren't these turning into like pipeline and revenue? And then, we look behind the scenes of what happens after the lead comes through. And that can be the silent killer. And I don't know if everyone, I think people listen to this on podcasts, so they won't see the chart, but just Google speed to lead in Google Images, and you'll see tons of research on this, of the importance of like when you get a lead, reach out quickly because these leads go stale much, much faster than you think. So if you're like waiting even 10 minutes, it's like kind of too long. If you're waiting 24 hours, like they might not even remember who you are. They're probably not interested anymore. Or they might be talking to your competitors. So that's another, like, I think big reason that, clicks and leads don't turn into pipeline is like the process of what happens once the lead comes into the database.
Yeah, this is an interesting point because, what the modern sort of marketer believes is that if you have a self-serve booking flow, and you fill out a form and you immediately book a demo right then and there, that resolves that issue. But what if when you look at that, the actual demo booking happens 7 days later, right? It didn't happen on the day off, it didn't happen on the next day because your calendars are busy or whatever happened. And that's the same issue. Is like you've immediately added a 7-day pause when you have somebody ready to engage. And so I think AI is going to play a role in this, which is, can you actually serve a pretty decent quality experience on the page itself the moment they are ready to book and guide you through a buying process before you're ready to talk to a human being? Did you all do stuff like that at HubSpot, or I'm curious?
We were testing that on the way out. So what it was for a long time when I was at HubSpot is, you go to the site and you fill out the form, and if like it looks like you're in our ICP, we have sales reach out. If it looks like you're like maybe like a solopreneur or like not exactly like a good fit to talk to sales, when you hit that, get demo button, it says, here's your video demo, instead of, like routing them to sales, which I think like made sense. I do think with AI, like you're going to be able to talk to like in a like an avatar, and they were testing that as I was leaving. I don't know how that test shook out. I think it's still on the site though, which means it must have worked.
All right, I'll go play around with that. We're thinking about doing something like that on Paramark, so it'll be fun. All right, let's talk about setting up your first campaign. Let's get into it, and yeah, I'll hand it to you. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, sounds good. So this is for the people that are not spending big money. Maybe they're trying to get into it. Is like, a common question is, okay, I want to try this. Where do I start? So the first thing you got to decide on is budget. And I don't think you have to go too crazy here. I think, 10 to 15K per channel that you want to test will get you a decent sample size to tell you if it's working. And when you first launch, your first metric that you're probably going to want to look at is something like MQLs or meetings booked, because you'll have a big sample size. You'll get that feedback pretty quickly. And the goal is to earn more budget, kind of like if your cost per MQL is in range. So like, you're not looking yet at like revenue or customers, because that happens later. You're looking at like, okay, I'm spending about $200 to get an MQL. I know that, I can close 1 in 10 MQLs. So, you're backing into, okay, like my customer acquisition cost is probably going to be about $2,000. If you feel like you can float that, then you've earned yourself more budget and like keep adding more. And then, keeping an eye on what's happening down funnel. But if your cost per MQL is looking good, invest more, see how your cost per SQL is looking, invest more, see how your cost per op, etc. So that's kind of the process is start small. And
Okay, I have a tactical question here. So you're saying start with MQL and get to a good point before you graduate to SQL or graduate to op. And you're saying it's mostly about the sample size and the how quick the signal is. Because if you wait for op, and if your sales cycle is 3 months and you're spending 10K, do you have 3 months to wait to be able to see the effect and then make decisions off of that? Did I get that right?
Yeah, exactly. So you have to wait 3 months, but also the number of ops you got. If you got 25 SQLs, maybe you only got 3 ops, and maybe like now it's like a coin flip, So it's.
But how do you go into a conversation with your finance team or your sales team who's going like, hey Rex, you're spending all this money, and like, how many ops did you get for the money you spent last week? Like, what is your, as a paid media person, how did you kind of have those conversations?
Yeah. So it's kind of like I was saying. It was like I know I haven't proven that the cost per op is good, but look at the cost per MQL, and if we assume the life cycle stage happens consistently with the rest of the business, it's fair to assume that this will turn into this cost per op. I think that's fair to like say, give me another 20K to find out. Yeah.
All right. So it's basically, hey, we know the conversion rates. You have to take a leap of faith. I've built enough, reputation of the company that, hey, I'm driving these things. I understand my numbers. I know that this will, convert, and we'll keep an eye on that cost per op, and let's keep increasing budget and see what happens. I like that.
Yeah. And if you don't, by the way, if you spend 10K and you don't get any MQLs, like back to the drawing board, like you have not earned more budget. Like you have other things to figure out first. Yeah.
Okay. I have another question here. So you and I we had a fun little brainstorm session in December, and I still owe you a follow-up from that. We were talking about building a, kind of DIY incrementality thing because, obviously anybody who's in this call probably knows what Paramark does. And for that, you need a lot of scale, you need a lot of volume. Do you think it's a good idea to put all of the 10, 15K in like a few geographies and try to isolate your effect? Or how do you typically think about that? Or do you go national? Like, what's your take on geo-testing your way into it?
Yeah, I don't start with geotesting, although, as you know, I am a huge proponent of incrementality testing and your work. But I don't usually start that way for a couple of reasons. One is I feel like you don't really have enough budget to like be able to detect lift when you're just getting started. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I feel like, especially in B2B, like incrementality studies are just like a little more expensive. Like if you have, if you're willing to do a 50K spike test and like, blast ads and your Series A, maybe that is enough. But to start, like you're probably 10 to 15K, maybe over 6 weeks. I don't know if you'd be able to detect the lift. Do you agree? You're
100% right. Yeah. Like we don't geotest our own ads right now for that exact reason. Is the ability to detect signal is going to be wrong, and so you're looking for qual feedback, and the qual feedback is good enough, and the observable sort of signals that, hey, LinkedIn is our third biggest referrer for traffic. Like, all right, yeah, duh, we should invest in LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. Okay, cool. I like that. All right, let's talk about channels. How do you, so let's just pick Paramark, right? So we're spending like whatever, 10, 15K. We have aspirations to grow to 100, 200K over the next like 12 months. Let's talk about specific channels on where do we go after LinkedIn. And I know I'm putting you on the spot because you don't know much about sort of our media, but where would you put the dollars, and how would you think about prioritizing testing?
Yeah. So the first two in B2B are almost always Google and LinkedIn. So Google, I mean, it sounds like you're not on Google, and I think you should think about it, because the nice thing about Google is it solves for timing, because it's people actively searching for you. And Paramark isn't necessarily like an impulse buy. Like, it's kind of like it. I don't know. It's B2B software.
You're
It's
right.
like,
Yep.
yeah. So like if someone is searching for incrementality study software, or like help with conversion lift studies, like this person is looking for you and you have that. You should show an ad at the top of the search results, and that should be a slam dunk. And I think you're not there. I guarantee you some of your competitors are. And I think that's a miss. I think you would get leads, every day. I mean, that depends on your budget, but like there's people out there that are looking for what you've got. You should be showing an ad on Google. So if you're not on Google, I think you should do that. And I think most B2B companies should.
I want to get your reaction to this one. By the way, I think you're right. We should be there. I didn't want to start there because we wanted to start with like almost like a, playing offense where we're going into LinkedIn and like going and appealing directly to the CMO who's likely going to delegate the decision of that Google search to somebody lower in their organization. And so it was like more about playing that sort of top down question. But what do you think about this idea? I heard about this from somebody where you take all the top conferences that your audience goes to, and the month or 2 months before the conference, whoever is searching for e-tail, I'm just making, I don't know if it's Chicago or whatever, e-tail Chicago hotels, and you start advertising based on those search queries. I thought that was a very clever idea, but like there's so much in search that you can do if you're B2B that most people like don't think about.
Yeah, that's not where I thought you were going with that. That's an interesting idea. I'd be shocked if it worked because there's this concept of quality score in Google, and Google doesn't want to create a bad user experience they care about their users way more than they care about their advertisers. So if you're trying to stuff like an incrementality ad in someone's face when they're looking for a hotel, while that may make sense for you, if Google does give you delivery, which they probably wouldn't. If they did, it would be very, very expensive, and you're better off running your effectively display ad somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Cool.
But points for creativity. Not I never discourage a test, but I'd be surprised if that worked. Where I thought you were going with that is like a lot of people want to like geofence like conferences with like social ads. So like HubSpot had inbound, Salesforce had Dreamforce. Like I don't think we ever did this, but we could in theory like make a perimeter around Dreamforce and target ads there. And there's a million. That was just an example, but that's what I thought you were going with that. That's another like popular idea. Another one that I feel is probably sounds cooler than it is. But anyway, yeah, you can get creative.
No, that's cool. Yeah. Okay. So Google, to capture the intent of the people who are in market, like you should absolutely be there. Completely agree. My team was scolding me for not being on Google. So there we go. All right. LinkedIn, Meta.
Yeah. So LinkedIn, you're in the right spot. Thought leadership ads, totally reasonable place to start. There's other fun stuff you can do in there. As you know, the cool part about LinkedIn is the like robust first party data, but target by job title and industry and function and skill and years of experience. So LinkedIn is always those are almost always 1-2.
Did you ever use tools like, even better targeting? So the ABM style, the Sixth Sense, the demand base, the vectors now, or primer, like those type of tools. Did you all experiment with that stuff at HubSpot, or do you recommend that people do? What's your take?
We didn't do much of that. I do have clients that use all of those tools that you just mentioned. I feel Primer is the one that's getting a lot of traction right now. I actually think I think you had them on your show.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think some of that stuff is better for non-LinkedIn because LinkedIn is like the source data. So like Apollo and Clay, like or like all of these people, like the enrichment, like so much of the backbone of what they do is like LinkedIn data, and you have the first party source data right there. So I think like any gains you can get is probably more marginal on LinkedIn and B2B than, something like Meta, where Meta doesn't have that data. And I totally believe Primer can like piece things together in a way that, would be effective. And I'm sure they can do it on LinkedIn too, but I think I think probably there's less of a gap. Yeah.
I have to believe that Meta is like the most misunderstood channel for B2B. Like most people think that Meta doesn't work. And I've seen the exact opposite in many of our customers where they're driving significant volume through Meta. So tell us why people have this misperception. And, we kind of talked about Primer. Like, what would you do in Meta that's different from a LinkedIn or a Google?
Yeah. So totally agree. Like 9 out of 10 times I bring up Meta in B2B, I get kind of like an eye roll back, and I get it. They're like, that's where you go to watch cat videos, not where to make like, B2B software decisions. But the funny thing is, like, the key argument that I get when I dig in is like, oh, our audience isn't on Meta. I'm just like according to the latest
Worries on more.
I think they're 3.5 billion weekly active users. It's like they're on Meta. Come on. I get that there's cat videos there too, but they're there. So yeah, it's worth a shot. The trick with Meta is two things. One is getting that signal right, like I was talking about before, like feeding back in the right conversion event, because that is really the way like targeting works now. I'm completely convinced Meta just like ignores everything else. Like you can still add like signals, but depending on how you set it up, it really is just like they have broad targeting and the pixel does the targeting. And then you also want to have like good diverse creative. A lot of people like they load in like 2 ads that are like kind of boring and then they don't see results, and it's not how it works. You have to load in like a bunch of ads, some videos, some images, have them look different, and kind of let the system pick and choose the right one for the right person on the right device and the right placement. And yeah, it might not work, but it's not because your audience isn't on there. It sometimes just doesn't work.
Well, on the point of creative, like, as somebody who's done a lot of paid media, and also you've had some time to explore what's happening with AI. Do you do your own creative when it comes to like copy and images now, or are you still kind of partnering with experts in copy and static and video? What do you think is happening from a media buyer's perspective?
Yeah, so I mean, copy is an interesting one. Let's take those one by one. So copy, the way we do it at our agency is we have, every client gets a custom GPT where we put in all kinds of context, anything we can learn about them. And then that writes the first draft of ads. And then we do a human review. And I feel that gets us like 90+% of the way there. And then we ship it to the client. That helps us push it over the finish line. So it's a collaboration, but it's so much easier than it used to be. On design and video, so we still work with video editors and designers, or 9 out of 10 times the client just has that in-house. There's all kinds of interesting, tools popping up. There's like full-blown like AI avatars, which is very interesting. And then yeah, there's all kinds of cool stuff. So when I first launched our creative services, I thought I was just going to be able to do it all myself with just AI. And I was not, I really burned a lot of weekends thinking I could do that. And it turns out I couldn't. You still do need, I think, some professionals to do different things. Maybe it'd be different for you if it's like the founder doing it themselves. But if you're really trying to make a lot of creative in bulk, because there were a couple challenges that I had. One is like the creative was, so like, for example, for images, it was like pretty good, but I had to like move little things, and like the window took a while to load, and then like I couldn't figure out how to like disconnect this layer from that layer. And it's not that I wasn't capable of doing it, but it just like kind of took a long time, longer than I thought.
Yeah.
So that was a struggle.
Yeah.
And then go ahead.
I have the same feeling. No, I have the same feeling with the creative workflow, that it feels easy, but then once you are trying to get it to a certain level of quality, it kind of falls down. So it kind of depends on like how rough do you want it to be. If you're okay with like it being a little bit, it's fine. But then if you're doing professional work for people and people are like expecting a certain amount of polish, you kind of need that finish and touch at the end.
Exactly.
Okay, there's a question, and I'm actually very curious about this as well. Let's take it live. So Matt asked this question: how do you feel about lead gen forms on platforms like Meta and LinkedIn versus ads that direct traffic to your website for conversion? I have so many thoughts on this one, but I'm curious about your thoughts.
So we start with on LinkedIn, we do use lead gen forms, and those have been way, way, way more successful. At this point, we don't even always test driving traffic to the site on LinkedIn because just time and time again, lead gen forms wins. On Meta, it's a more complicated conversation. We usually start with traffic to the site on Meta. Lead gen forms can work, but you have to add in all kinds of different features to make sure it's not just like all spam cheap leads. And I'm happy to elaborate on that, but I'll pause there.
And you feel like the quality on LinkedIn is fine with a lead gen form? Like you don't have that same just like low quality, hey, I'm just like filling out a form type of thing?
It's way better. It's not going to be as good as going to your website because there's much less friction. So like whenever it's easier to do something, people will just do it. If they have to be kind of determined, then they actually want to get in touch with you. But on LinkedIn, I do feel it's worth it to do lead gen forms.
Got it. My take on lead gen forms is if you're going to do them, think of that as just the first layer in the conversation that you're having with them, right? Which is like, to your point, you're going to follow up and you're going to show up in other ways in their feed because just because they filled out a form does not mean that they are in any shape or form ready to talk to you. And that's the danger that I find is like, it's very easy to say, hey, look how many leads I'm getting through a lead gen form. But the stuff that has to happen after that for it to be actually successful is where the battle is won.
Totally. Especially like if you're doing content offers, like so many times I've been advising companies and they like are so excited about how many like ebooks they've got. And then we like look under the hood. I'm just like, and actually another interesting thought exercise is ask your paid media person if they know what happens after somebody downloads the ebook. Because in my experience, actually like no one in the company like even knows what happens. Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure like, okay, so it's the same thing in my head as like bookmarking on X or saving on LinkedIn. I save so much stuff and I bookmark so much stuff. And the only time when I actually started going back and referencing those bookmarks and those, saves was when I started doing my podcast because that became sort of content for my podcast. But in my day-to-day life, am I ever going to go back and read that save? Probably not.
Right.
And I think the same thing is true with some of these lead gen forms. Like it's very easy to fill out a form, but then am I really going to take action, based on the best practices in that ebook? Probably not.
Yeah.
All right. Reddit is having a huge comeback in the last couple of years. Let's talk about Reddit a little bit and then move on. Yeah.
Yeah, Reddit's a little bit of a trickier unlock in my experience on performance marketing, but it is worth a shot. They do have a lot of users, and the interesting thing about Reddit is they have unique users. So there are a lot of people that only use Reddit. So it's like it's a different bucket of people that you can't find elsewhere. And I do think they're like oftentimes a little more technical. So yeah, Reddit is in the conversation with Meta of like, what do we do next? Yeah. Cool. And then the last one I have on. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say about Reddit. I was listening to another podcast. This is a consumer company, but they were like, they had a terrible experience with Reddit and then they had a great experience with Reddit. And the difference between those two experiences was when they had a terrible experience, they tried to show up as like a corporate. Hey, what do you think about this new thing that we are launching? Let's open up for feedback and very like buttoned up type of conversation. Whereas the second time they tried it, they were like, there was already a conversation happening about one of their products, and they just chimed in with memes. And, doing that allowed them to actually feel like they're part of the community rather than just like trying to get value. So they're giving value back. Here's something funny. Yeah. And then as a follow-up to that, they actually dropped a free offer. This was a car company. So they literally said, you can just get a test drive. We'll drop the car at your home to the first like 15 people that, say they want this. And it just like blew up. Massive.
That's cool.
So yeah, I don't know how you can do that in B2B, but Bing. Oh my God, Bing. It is always so interesting to see Bing on a list. So talk to us about Bing.
Yeah. So Bing, it totally depends on what industry you're in, what you're trying to do. But Bing actually is still alive and has meaningful volume for the right type of person. So if you are selling to people who use Shiny Macs and Google Chrome and are like, tech savvy, Bing is probably not going to be a fit. If you're selling to guys like my dad who a little bit older, open up their Windows computers, hit that internet button. Now they're on Microsoft Edge, which is the default browser, and then they're searching for something. And now all of a sudden they're on Bing because that's the default search engine on Microsoft Edge. Like like that kind of person is using Bing. So, if you're in construction or healthcare or, maybe certain parts of finance, if your ICP skews a little bit older, maybe a little less tech savvy, like definitely worth a shot. For you, Pranav, I wouldn't waste your time.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, there's another question and then we'll get into AI stuff. So Matt also asks, when driving traffic to your site from paid, what do you see as the most successful types of pages to drive that traffic to? Is it assets? Is it the homepage? Is it the product page? Case studies, or you're building a specific landing page? What's your favorite tool?
Yeah, usually I feel people start with their homepage and or like the demo page. And I've seen both like long pages and going straight to the demo page work. It's kind of talking about it with lead gen forms where you'll probably get more demos if you remove the step, because from your homepage or landing page to demo page, you'll probably lose like 80% of people, but the more determined people will get there and those will be the better leads. But you have to balance that with like, if you go straight to demo page, they don't really know who you are yet. Like they haven't like read a website. So I think both are worth testing. And then usually there is some sort of like customization by like, what you're trying to do. So for example, if you have like, if you're bidding on your competitors, like us versus them, will oftentimes beat like a homepage because it's like, that's what they're looking for, give them what they're looking for. And so I think it's to sum it up, probably start with your homepage or your demo page, A/B test, and then try to work towards like a little more customization over time.
Makes a lot of sense. I also like to tell people like make sure the creative and the copy on your ad matches the creative and the copy on the page that you're going to land them on, right? So have some level of consistency, because if the message is completely different, then I think this is pretty 101, but I think people forget that if you don't do that, conversion is always going to be a little bit challenged.
Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
AI budgets, AI bidding. Let's talk about that. I have no clue what's happening on this slide. So tell me what's happening.
So this slide's for like the more old school marketers or the type A people out there or the people who need a little more control, because the way it used to work is it was all about like really like micro targeting and like defined budgets and like shifting money, shifting like $10 a day over to mobile or shifting $10 a day over to like this audience. And what we're looking at here for anyone on the podcast is, let's say you're trying to go into Benelux as like a new region. You could tell Google, go spend $10 a day in Netherlands, $10 a day in Luxembourg, $10 a day in Belgium, and do your best. And you may get, 3, 5, and 2 conversions for a total of 10 conversions because Google is listening to your instructions. But let's say instead you just say, Google, go spend $30 a day in Benelux. I don't care how you allocate it, you figure it out. And based on, that specific day, maybe Google would have preferred to spend $7 in the Netherlands, $18 in Luxembourg, and $5 in Belgium. And a different day, it was a different thing. And the more you try to like handcuff the system, effectively you're like, Google's got 200 different signals that it's looking at and real-time data. It's like, you're not going to win. And I'm not saying have one budget. Like there are reasons to break things out. There's operational reasons and other reasons, different goals. But you do want to kind of like lean into consolidation more now than you used to.
And this is a very interesting point because, there's been this built up skepticism of Google and Meta and LinkedIn that you don't trust them, right? Because like you don't want them to be creating their own homework and so on and so forth. So media buyers have always been like, I want to retain a lot of control. And what I think you're talking about is like, hey, the ground has shifted a little bit and they're deploying so much AI and ML that your ability to beat that ML and beat that AI with human optimization is no longer the case. Those systems have gotten smarter and smarter. And, so you lean into that and figure out how to leverage those AI budgets and bidding. And if you're going to be afraid of that and try to manually control every single dollar, you're not going to make it. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Like there's definitely nuance to that because there are some AI features that Google releases, and it's still early, and you're kind of being the good faith advertiser while they figure that out, and that's fine. But you do there. I agree with what you said, but there's still checks, and there's still, like for example, like go broad, but like keep an eye on the search term report and see what you're actually showing an ad for. Like it's fine if you want to let Google write copy on your behalf, but read what they're writing just in case like they mess something up. Or, an AI Max, if you want to let them pick a different landing pages from your site than the one you provided, great. But like keep an eye on like what those landing pages are. So my general position is lean into AI, try it, but then, just watch it.
Treat it like an intern who is really smart but doing it for the first time. So, be careful of giving them the keys to the kingdom.
Yeah. Like, like when like we all use like ChatGPT or our favorite LLM, and like it's not that it necessarily gets that much wrong, but sometimes you're like, I mean, sometimes it does, but sometimes you're like, ooh, like that was a good guess. I get why you wanted that, but that's not exactly what I wanted. And I feel that happens like all the time in these ad networks as well. Yeah.
All right. Okay. I know we are approaching the end here. So your favorite company, HubSpot. we don't use HubSpot. We use a new age AI CRM. But
Yeah.
Tell me about how you recommend people track ads in HubSpot. Yeah.
Yeah. And for the record, I don't work at HubSpot anymore, no skin in the game, but I included the slide because I think there's some I think 80% of our clients are on HubSpot, and some of them use another thing as well. But I think most people don't realize some of the stuff the ads tool can do. And so I just wanted to take 2 minutes to give some like very tactical things that I think is going to be helpful to people. So the first thing is connect HubSpot to your ad network. So open your HubSpot, go to the top right, hit the gear icon on the left, go to marketing, ads, and connect the three that are available: Google, LinkedIn, and Meta. And now data is like connected and you can do all kinds of things. The first thing you can do is you can easily see down funnel performance. So now if you're back in your HubSpot, go to like the main page, go to the left, hit the megaphone and go to ads, and you'll wind up on this dashboard. And you can literally add columns for marketing qualified lead, sales qualified lead, opportunity customer. So if before you only had visibility into leads, now you can see the whole life cycle stage. Most people actually don't know you can do this, at least the ones I work with. So go set up your columns and you have lots of great visibility. Second cool thing you can do is build audiences. So you can build a list of companies that you want to target and pipe it right into LinkedIn. You can build a list of contacts that you want to target and pipe it right into LinkedIn, Meta, or Google. And that could be a very useful thing. Yeah. So like, a common tactic is like, I want to send ads to everyone that's currently an MQL or an SQL while they're in my sales process. You can, connect the systems, and very, very easy to do that.
Why do people not know this stuff, Rex? Like, why is it such an unknown fact?
I don't know. I like, and it's not just regular people. Like, do you remember in the beginning I told you I was like, I got a lot of exposure to a lot of different agencies, and actually a lot of these agencies that I was working with, like, they couldn't tell you how many like, SQLs you got. I was just like, guys, we can fix this in 10 minutes. Like, and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. It's interesting. Okay, so maybe we gotta advise the HubSpot team to promote their ads product a little bit more.
Yeah.
Okay, let's bring it to a close. So what are the biggest mistakes that people make with paid media, and what should we look out for?
Yeah. So the first one is not using AI features like we were talking about earlier. Like if you're still on manual CPC, like please, like, it's time to give up some control. And maybe you've tested it and it didn't work. Test it again. Use a different proxy. That like there's just no way you can still be. It's 2026. Like, unless it's like for a short-term specific use case, you really should be leaning into like AI bidding and optimization and audiences. With that being said, implement your checks. Like we were talking about earlier, keep an eye on what the systems are doing and make sure it's in your best interest. Use the breakdowns, comb through data, go through reporting, keep an eye on it. The third one, top paid media don't, is launching without setting up your conversion tracking. So we work with a lot of like very eager founders that want to move quickly. And I love that. And those are the best founders. But there's some times where people just want to like go, go, go. And I promise you, just like take a couple days and just like set up the basics. It's like getting in your car and like closing your eyes and just like driving as fast as you can.
I feel like I know who you're talking about. I can picture 3 people in my head who you're
It's a
talking
persona.
about.
It's a persona, and it's like I get it. Like, like you don't have to like adjust your seat and adjust all the mirrors. That's fine, but like at least don't have a blindfold on. Like let's just take let's set up the foundations. And then the fourth one is slow ups. I think that's like oftentimes the silent killer of these programs.
One of the ones that I was talking to a chief growth officer at another company. It's a SaaS company, but it's like very bottoms up, right? So it's like $10 per month type of subscriptions. And one of the other don't that we talked about is like invest more in your creative. Like they're doing, or historically they've done like 1 video ad a quarter. Now they're like 1 video ad a month. I'm like, no. You need to have 5 video ads a week at your scale, right? We're talking about they're spending like $20 million, $30 million across all the major ad platforms. And so if you're doing that and you don't have like 4 or 5 new assets every week, like you're just leaving money on the table to the point of that creative diversity. And people don't realize how important that is to make paid media work.
Yeah, that's a good one, because it's also like people think they have like good assets. And 2 things I'll say to that is like, one, like actually humans are kind of bad at, there's been like fun studies of like asking like expert marketers, like which of these do you think is going to work best? And like even the top marketers, they don't really know, like as long as it's like within reason. And then the other thing is like, it doesn't even make sense to say like this is better than that anymore, because like different things work in different placements for different people on different devices. So yeah, the name of the game now is like creative diversity.
Yeah. All right. Rex, what did we not ask you? Is there anything else that's top of mind for you with in the age of AI? I hate that term, but we have to use it. Like, are there things that you're looking forward to as a media buyer for the next couple of years that we should chat about to close this out?
I mean, I think the only other thing is I think incrementality really is going to play a bigger and bigger role for, a lot of reasons. Like tracking is just getting, or like traditional click-based tracking is just getting harder and harder and harder. And, like, again, not if you're spending like $10,000-$15,000 to try, but if you're spending, millions of dollars, especially millions of dollars a month, you do want to have like conversion lift studies recalibrating whatever, like whether you're on multi-touch or like view through or whatever it is. I do think that is already is an important thing and is going to continue becoming more important.
Okay, one more because it's timely. Google launched AI overview ads, and obviously ChatGPT has announced that they're launching ads. Mm-hmm. What's your over-under on how much revenue OpenAI is going to make off of ads in 2026?
Oh my God. I may look stupid putting out in 2026. In 2026,
like at the end, like when we sit here. Oh, okay. I'll give you a number. Yeah, I think it's going to be something ridiculously high, like $10 billion. And the reason I'm coming up with that number is you just look at I think they have 200 million weekly actives.
I think it's 900 million.
Weekly actives, or those are monthly actives? Like, anyway, whatever that number is.
Yeah.
But if you just take that rate and you apply like some, their CPM based pricing, like it's easy. Like if you do the math, it's like easily like $5 billion right off of that. So I think they will hit that run rate by the end of this year, which is going to be bonkers. And like, if you're a media buyer, better get on that gravy train, like very, very quickly when it becomes accessible.
Yeah. So I think if you asked me 2027, I would have pegged it at more like 35 billion, like way, way higher than 10. The reason 2026, maybe 10 is more, is probably about right, is because they're like just getting started with like select advertisers, and probably like pilots are going to go on like through the summer. I'm not expecting this to be like, a full scale rollout until end of summer at the earliest. I may be wrong, but that's why I think like this is not going to be their like $30 billion year. Yeah.
But then you remember, like, at least from a consumer perspective, you'll have Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I have a feeling that they're going to completely remove all the guardrails and go full.
They'll be ready.
For
they'll be ready.
They'll be ready.
Once they roll it out, I mean, it's going to be a total gold rush. It's going to be wild.
I can't wait. Can't wait. Good times. Rex, thank you so much for doing this. So again, everybody who's here, go follow Rex on LinkedIn. Go check out Summit Chase and see what he's up to. I have a feeling there's some exciting stuff about to come. So Rex, thanks again.
All right. Thanks for now.
All right, folks, that was Rex Gelb, the ex-head of paid media at HubSpot. Go give him a follow on LinkedIn and tune in again next week for another great episode.